Listen to me very carefully and do not turn this off because the world you woke up to this morning no longer exists. What I am about to tell you is something you will not find on CNN. You won't find it in the New York Times, and you certainly won't hear it from the podium at the State Department. We are witnessing in real time the total systemic collapse of the state of Israel. This isn't hyperbole. This isn't a worst case scenario projection. This is the kinetic reality on the ground as I speak. As a former Marine Corps intelligence officer, I have spent decades analyzing theater level conflicts, and I am telling you, the indicators are all flashing red. The IDF, the so called Invincible Army, is effectively surrendering in the field, and the senior leadership, the very generals who swore to protect the Zionist project, are fleeing the country. If you think the media is giving you the full picture, you are being lied to on a scale that is frankly breathtaking. Stay with me for the next few minutes because what I'm about to reveal regarding the secret cables coming out of Tel Aviv and the movements at Ben Gurion Airport will change everything you thought you knew about this conflict. If you walk away now, you are going to be blindsided by the events that are going to drop within the next 24 to 48 hours. To understand how we got to this point of absolute disintegration, you have to look past the propaganda. For the last several months, the narrative has been that Israel is winning or mopping up. But my sources within the intelligence community and my own analysis of the tactical movements in the north and the south tell a different story. We've seen the gradual degradation of Israeli logistics, but what's happening right now is a total fracture. It's like the collapse of the Soviet Union or the fall of Saigon, but accelerated. The myth of the Iron Dome has been shattered, not by a few lucky shots, but by a sophisticated multi-layered saturation strategy that has drained the Israeli interceptor stockpiles to near zero. They are out of missiles, they are out of time, and they are out of options. But here is where the situation turns from a military defeat into a national extinction event. 2 hours ago, reports began filtering through back channels, reports that the mainstream media is desperate to suppress of a massive, uncoordinated exodus from the Kiryat, Israel's military headquarters in Tel Aviv. We are talking about state generals, the high-ranking architects of the current campaign, being spotted boarding unmarked Gulfstream jets destined for Cyprus and undisclosed locations in Western Europe. This isn't a planned diplomatic mission. This is a rat line. This is the top brass realizing that the front lines have dissolved and the axis of resistance is no longer at the gates. They are through the gates. I want you to visualize what is happening right now on the streets of Haifa and Tel Aviv. The skies are not clear. They are streaked with the orange glow of persistent fires that the civil defense forces can no longer extinguish. The sirens aren't just intermittent anymore. They are a constant low-frequency drone that has become the soundtrack to a dying state. I'm looking at data showing wave after wave of tactical drones and precision-guided munitions. We're talking wave 60, wave 70 of operations that the media isn't even naming yet, hitting critical infrastructure with a 92% success rate. The power grid is flickering, the desalination plants are offline. Israel is a high-tech society that has been plunged into a pre-industrial nightmare in the span of a few days. But stay with me because that isn't even the most shocking part of this collapse. The real story, the story that should have every American 40 to 65 years old terrified about our own involvement, is the surrender of the IDF units in the north. We are seeing entire platoons, battle-hardened men, simply laying down their arms. They aren't being captured in some grand Napoleonic battle. They are walking away from their post because the command and control structure has evaporated. When the generals flee, the colonels stop giving orders. When the orders stop, the soldiers realize they are being sacrificed for a political leadership that has already moved its assets to offshore accounts in Switzerland and the Cayman Islands. I've spent years in the belly of the beast, analyzing theater-level logistics. When an army stops receiving food, fuel, and, most importantly, instructions, it ceases to be an army. It becomes a panicked mob. That is the IDF right now. And here is what's even more alarming. As the IDF surrenders, the vacuum is being filled by forces that the United States is completely unprepared to engage. You need to understand the numbers here because numbers don't lie, even if politicians do. The cost of this collapse is astronomical. Israel was spending $50,000 to $100,000 per interceptor to shoot down drones that cost $500 to make. It's basic math, folks. You cannot win an attritional war when your success bankrupts you. My analysis shows that the Israeli treasury is empty. The shekel is in a free fall that makes the 1920s Weimar Republic look stable. And while the media talks about aid packages from Washington, they aren't telling you that the hardware isn't arriving. The docks are empty because the logistics chains have been severed by long-range maritime strikes that no one is reporting on. Now, you might be asking, Scott, why isn't the U.S. Navy stepping in? Why isn't the Eisenhower or the Ford carrier group stopping this? Stay with me because this is the pivot point. I'm getting word from my contacts in the Pentagon that the U.S. naval assets in the region are currently operating under a defensive-only posture. Why? Because they've seen the telemetry. They know that the hypersonic capabilities being fielded against the Israeli state are capable of putting a carrier at the bottom of the Mediterranean in under 12 minutes. The U.S. is not coming to save the day because the U.S. cannot save the day without risking a total nuclear exchange. The stakes are climbing every hour. As the state collapses, we are seeing the activation of sleeper cells and proxies across the entire region. U.S. bases in Iraq and Syria are being hit with a frequency that is unprecedented, 80, 90 strikes a day. The media calls them harassment fire. I call them range-finding missions for the final blow. We are watching the total expulsion of American influence from the Middle East in real time, and it's all tied to the fact that our primary proxy, Israel, is no longer a functioning entity. Keep watching, because I'm about to break down the what comes next scenario that the Washington elite are praying you don't figure out. If you think this stays in the Middle East, you are sadly mistaken. The economic shockwaves of an Israeli collapse will hit the New York Stock Exchange within 72 hours. We are talking about a global margin call. The amount of Israeli debt held by Western pension funds is a ticking time bomb. When the state officially declares it can no longer function, which my sources suggest could happen by the end of the week, the global financial system will go into a paroxysm of fear. The truth is harsher than anything you'll hear on the evening news. The full picture is that the Zionist experiment as a military and political power is over. The generals knew it 3 weeks ago. That's why they've been moving their families. That's why the flight manifests out of Tel Aviv are classified. Having spent years analyzing theater-level conflicts, I recognize the smell of a dying regime. It smells like burning JP-8 fuel and the silent phones of a command center that no longer has anyone on the other end. But let's get into the specifics of the tactical surrender, because this is where the payoff for your attention really lies. In the Galilee, the 91st Division has effectively ceased to exist as a cohesive fighting force. I'm looking at drone footage, stuff that hasn't been scrubbed by the sensors yet, showing rows of Merkava tanks sitting idle, not because they were destroyed, but because the crews simply walked home. They saw the true promise waves coming in, 200, 300 missiles at a time, and they realized the Iron Dome was a sieve. When you realize your shield is made of paper, you don't stay to be the target. And what about the state generals I mentioned? Let's name some names and look at the trajectories. We are seeing movements associated with the highest levels of the Southern Command. These aren't strategic redeployments. When a general's private encrypted comms go silent and his transponder pops up over the Mediterranean heading west, that is a desertion. The leadership has abandoned the rank and file. They are leaving the Israeli public, the 40-year-old mothers, the 60-year-old shopkeepers, to deal with the consequences of a war they can no longer win. By the end of this video, you will understand that we are not just talking about a border shift. We are talking about a fundamental reorganization of the world order. The unipolar moment is dead. Russia and China are sitting back, watching the U.S. exhaust its remaining credibility and munitions trying to prop up a ghost. This is the truth that mainstream media won't tell you. The U.S. military is currently redlined. We don't have the 155mm shells to send. We don't have the interceptors to spare. We are exposed, and our enemies know it. I want you to feel the weight of this. Think about the grief of the families who were told their sons were winning while the generals were packing their Louis Vuitton bags for a flight to Paris. Think about the anger that should be boiling in your blood as you realize your tax dollars, billions upon billions, were poured into a security apparatus that collapsed in less than a month of high intensity conflict. This is the privileged source information that the gatekeepers want to keep from you because it proves their entire worldview is a lie. But stay with me because there is one more layer to this onion, and it is the most terrifying one of all. What happens to the Samson option? For those of you who don't know, the Samson option is Israel's hypothesized doctrine of last resort nuclear strikes if the state is about to be overrun. With the generals fleeing and the IDF surrendering, who has the codes? Who has their finger on the button? Is it a panicked, cornered political leader who has lost his mind? Or have the Axis forces already neutralized the launch sites? This is the question that is keeping the Joint Chiefs of Staff awake at 3 a.m. We are in the most dangerous window of human history since the Cuban Missile Crisis, and the American public is being fed fluff pieces about celebrity gossip. I'm telling you this as a man who has sat in the briefing rooms. I've seen the theater level projections. The map is being redrawn in blood as we speak. The collapse of the IDF is not just a military event, it is a spiritual and psychological breaking point. When the People's Army stops believing in the state ceases to exist. Stay with me because we are approaching the final revelation. I've been tracking a specific series of coordinates in the Negev desert. My analysis indicates that these are the primary storage facilities for what remains of Israel's strategic reserves. Within the last 6 hours, those coordinates have been struck with a precision that suggests internal intelligence was leaked. The generals aren't just fleeing, they are selling the keys on the way out. It's a fire sale of a nation. You need to see this right now. The 80 missile waves I mentioned earlier, they were just the diversion. The real strike, the one that broke the back of the IDF, was a cyber-kinetic hybrid that took out the entire internal military communication network. For the last 48 hours, the IDF has been fighting blind. That is why they are surrendering. You can't fight a war if you can't talk to your commander, and you certainly can't fight a war if your commander is currently checking into a luxury hotel in Limassol. This could drop at any hour, the formal announcement of a transitional government or a total military junta. But don't expect the media to use the word collapse. They'll use words like realignment, strategic pause, or humanitarian ceasefire. Don't believe them. Look at the satellite imagery, look at the flight trackers, look at the empty barracks. I've spent my life analyzing these conflicts. I know what a shattered force looks like. It looks like the IDF right now. It looks like the smoke rising over Tel Aviv. It looks like the silent, empty halls of the Knesset. The state is hollow. The core has been eaten away by decades of overconfidence and a failure to adapt to the new reality of 21st century warfare. By now, you should understand that this isn't just another round of violence in the Middle East. This is the end game. The what comes next is a period of global instability, the likes of which we haven't seen in our lifetimes. The oil markets will react. The shipping lanes will close. Your geopolitical anxiety isn't a malfunction. It's your intuition telling you the truth that the screen in your living room won't. Stay tuned because as this situation develops in real time, I will be here to provide the tactical breakdown that no one else has the courage to give. We are watching history unfold, and it is a harsh, cold reality. The IDF has surrendered, the generals have fled, the state has collapsed, and the world will never be the same. Remember what I told you about the timing. Watch the news cycles over the next 48 hours. Watch for the unexplained technical difficulties in major news bureaus. Watch for the sudden, urgent meetings at the UN that lead to nothing. That is the sound of a vacuum being filled. That is the sound of a new era beginning, one where the old powers are shown to be paper tigers. This is Scott Ritter. I've given you the truth. Now it's up to you to prepare for the world that comes next. Don't stop looking for the real data. Don't let them lull you back to sleep with their all is well narratives. All is not well. The collapse is here, and it's only the beginning. Stay with me, stay informed, and most importantly, stay skeptical of everything you see on the mainstream airwaves. The truth is out there, but you have to have the stomach to look at it. The Israeli state as we knew it is gone. The generals are in the wind. The IDF is a memory. This is the new reality. Get ready.